What if the Earth you call home isn't as stable or safe as you've always believed? To most of us, our planet feels like a reliable stage where history plays out, a constant beneath our feet, while time moves forward. But the truth is far more unsettling. Earth is not a calm, passive backdrop. It is alive, restless, and filled with forces that could turn our world upside down in an instant. Every continent, every ocean, every gust of wind carries the weight of billions of years of violent history, and every one of those forces is still shaping the future we haven't yet lived. We walk around as if the ground beneath us is solid, yet below lies a churning engine of molten rock, a force capable of ripping open the land and darkening the skies for years. Above, the magnetic shield that has quietly protected life for millions of years is flickering, weakening in ways scientists can't fully explain, leaving us vulnerable to cosmic dangers we barely understand. And out in the endless dark of space, asteroids the size of mountains continue to cross our path, silent reminders that life here is only one impact away from erasure. But perhaps the most chilling reality is that these dangers are not locked in the past or waiting in the far future. They are unfolding now. The oceans are rising, swallowing land inch by inch, while weather grows more violent, more unpredictable, more merciless. Ancient stories that once sounded like myths, tales of floods, fire, and collapse, are beginning to look less like legend and more like warnings left behind by those who came before us. Civilizations once thought invincible crumbled when the climate shifted or when disaster struck without warning. What makes us believe we are any different? The shocking truth is that Earth has always tested its inhabitants. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it roars, but it never stops reminding us that survival here has always come at a price. And as we explore the secrets hidden in its past, the forces shaping its present, and the threats looming in its future, one question lingers above them all. Are we ready for what's coming next? The story of Earth does not begin with calm blue oceans or green forests. It begins in violence, in chaos, in fire that stretched across the newborn solar system. Roughly 4.5 billion years ago, what we now call Earth was nothing more than dust and rock swirling around a young star. This star, the Sun, was still in its infancy, burning hot and unstable, surrounded by a disk of debris left over from its formation. Within this storm of cosmic material, countless particles collided, stuck together, and grew. Over millions of years, tiny fragments became larger bodies, each crash releasing more heat, each collision shaping what would one day become a planet. There was no gentle process. The Earth was born out of relentless impacts, with temperatures so high that entire surfaces melted, forming oceans not of water but of molten rock. One of the most cataclysmic events in this violent birth was the collision with a Mars-sized body. Scientists call Theia. This wasn't a small strike, but a planetary-scale crash that nearly shattered Earth itself. The impact was so immense that a huge portion of both Theia and the early Earth was blasted into orbit. For a time, Earth would have looked like a shattered ember, glowing red and bleeding molten material into space. Out of this wreckage, gravity slowly gathered the debris into a sphere. That sphere became our moon. So, the calm silver disk that hangs in our night sky is not just a passive companion. It is a reminder of how destructive and violent the early solar system really was. Every time you see the moon, you are looking at evidence of a collision so fierce that it nearly ended Earth before life had even begun. Even after the moon-forming impact, Earth remained a dangerous place. For hundreds of millions of years, comets and asteroids rained down constantly, bombarding the surface with explosive force. Each impact released more heat, keeping the planet unstable, its crust thin and fragile. Enormous basins were carved out by strikes that would have wiped out anything living, had life even existed yet. And yet these same impacts may have delivered something essential for the future: water. Many scientists believe that icy comets carried the ingredients for Earth's oceans, crashing into the surface and releasing their cargo. What seems like destruction from one perspective was, in fact, creation from another. As the chaos continued, the Earth began to change from a molten hellscape into a planet with layers. Heavy metals like iron and nickel sank toward the center, forming a dense core. This core became more than just a ball of metal. It became the engine that drives Earth's magnetic field, the invisible shield that protects us from deadly solar radiation today. Lighter materials floated upward, creating the mantle and crust. Slowly, the surface cooled enough to harden, forming continents that would one day drift, collide, and reshape into the landscapes we know. But even then, the atmosphere above was far from safe. Early Earth's skies were thick with carbon dioxide, methane and sulfur, a toxic mix unfit for breathing. Instead of blue skies, the world was likely cloaked in a reddish haze, the air heavy with volcanic fumes, lightning flashing constantly across a turbulent sky. The surface itself was no safer. Volcanoes erupted endlessly, releasing rivers of lava and choking the air with ash. Earthquakes shook the land as tectonic plates began their restless dance, pulling continents apart and crashing them back together. This was a world of extremes, heat that could vaporize rock, oceans forming in the midst of chaos, and storms of unimaginable ferocity. And yet, within this violent crucible, the building blocks of life were forming. Simple molecules energized by lightning and volcanic heat began to combine in complex ways. Deep in hydrothermal vents at the bottom of the seas, strange chemical reactions took place, reactions that would eventually lead to the first living cell. This paradox is what makes Earth's beginning so fascinating. The very violence that made the planet so dangerous was also what made it habitable. Without the massive impact that formed the Moon, Earth's tilt and rotation might never have stabilized enough for seasons to exist. Without the bombardment of comets, oceans might never have formed. Without volcanic eruptions and a restless core, the atmosphere might never have gained the elements necessary for life. What looks like destruction was, in reality, the foundation for everything that followed. Life was born not in peace but in chaos, not in calm but in fire, and the scars of this violent beginning are still visible today. Look at the craters of the Moon and you are seeing a frozen record of the same impacts that once struck Earth. Visit places like Iceland or Hawaii and you'll witness volcanic activity that is the echo of forces forged billions of years ago. Peer deep into the Earth with scientific instruments and you'll find that the molten heart of our planet still churns, just as it did in its fiery infancy. Even the continents drifting beneath our feet are a product of that ancient chaos. In a very real sense, Earth's violent birth never ended. It simply changed form. Perhaps the most humbling thought is this: the conditions that made Earth habitable were not inevitable. They were the result of accidents, of collisions, of random cosmic events that could have turned out very differently. If Theia had struck Earth at a different angle, maybe the Moon would never have formed. Without the Moon, Earth's axis might wobble so violently that stable climates would be impossible, making life as we know it unlikely. If water-bearing comets had missed their mark, our planet could have remained a dry, barren rock. The fact that everything aligned in just the right way is both miraculous and terrifying, because it reminds us how fragile our place in the universe really is. And while we often think of Earth as unique, we now know it is just one planet in a universe filled with billions. Some of those worlds are hot and barren, others frozen and silent. Few, if any, have the perfect balance of chaos and stability that gave rise to life here. Earth's violent beginning is not just the story of our planet. It is the story of why we exist at all. Every living thing, from the simplest cell to the most complex human society, traces its origins back to that fire, to those collisions, to the molten chaos of a world that seemed uninhabitable. So when we look at Earth today, with its oceans, forests and skies, it's easy to forget that beneath this beauty lies a history of destruction. But remembering that history changes the way we see the world. It reminds us that what seems permanent is only temporary, that what seems safe was born out of danger. The violent birth of Earth was not just a beginning, it was a warning. Because if the planet was forged in chaos, what makes us think chaos won't come again? Every second of every day, Earth is under attack. You can't see it, you can't feel it, but high-energy particles from the sun and from deep space are constantly bombarding our planet. These streams of radiation are powerful enough to strip away atmospheres, fry electronics and make life impossible on the surface of most worlds. Look at Mars, and you'll see what happens when a planet doesn't have the right defenses. Once it may have had oceans and a thick atmosphere, but without protection it became barren, dry and lifeless. Earth, however, has a secret weapon, an invisible shield that wraps around the planet, deflecting most of the deadly radiation and cosmic debris that would otherwise devastate us. This shield is the magnetic field, and while we rarely think about it, it is one of the main reasons life here exists at all. The magnetic field is born deep inside the Earth, in the molten outer core of iron and nickel. Think of it like a gigantic dynamo. As the liquid metal churns, heated by radioactive decay and the lingering energy of Earth's formation, it creates electric currents. These currents, in turn, generate magnetic forces that rise outward, stretching far beyond the surface and forming a protective bubble known as the magnetosphere. This bubble is our frontline defense against solar winds, the relentless streams of charged particles blasted out by the sun. When these winds hit the magnetosphere, most are deflected away, guided harmlessly around the planet. Without this defense, the solar wind would strip away Earth's atmosphere molecule by molecule, leaving us as exposed and desolate as Mars. But the magnetic field does more than just protect. It creates some of the most beautiful natural displays we've ever seen, the auroras. When a burst of solar particles breaches the magnetic shield and collides with gases in the upper atmosphere, the result is curtains of light that ripple across the sky near the poles, glowing green, purple, and red. These breathtaking displays are not just a wonder to behold, they are reminders of the invisible battle being fought above our heads. Every flicker of aurora is proof that Earth's shield is holding, that the sun's fury has been deflected, at least for now. Yet this shield is not invincible. In fact, scientists have discovered that Earth's magnetic field is weakening. Over the last 200 years, its strength has dropped by about 10%, and in some regions, particularly over the South Atlantic, the field is alarmingly unstable. Satellites passing through this area suffer malfunctions as radiation seeps closer to Earth. Some researchers believe this could be a sign of something even more dramatic, a geomagnetic reversal. Throughout Earth's history, the magnetic poles have flipped many times, with north becoming south and vice versa. These flips don't happen overnight. They can take thousands of years to complete. But during the transition, the field weakens dramatically, leaving the planet more exposed to harmful radiation. If such a reversal were to begin today, the consequences for modern civilization could be staggering. Imagine a world where satellites fail more frequently, where GPS systems and communication networks collapse, where radiation levels in certain regions rise to dangerous levels, air travel could become hazardous, power grids could be knocked out, and technology we depend on for daily life could be disrupted. Some scientists downplay the risk, noting that humanity has survived previous reversals, but those happened long before we built a world so reliant on electronics. The truth is, we don't know what would happen to a civilization like ours if the magnetic shield faltered. All we know is that it will happen again. It's not a matter of if, but when. Even without a reversal, solar storms remain a looming threat. Every so often, the sun releases bursts of energy known as coronal mass ejections, hurling billions of tons of plasma into space. If one of these bursts hits Earth head-on, it can overwhelm even the magnetosphere, triggering massive geomagnetic storms. In 1859, a storm known as the Carrington event lit up the skies with auroras so bright they could be seen as far south as the Caribbean. Telegraph systems sparked, operators were shocked, and some lines burst into flames. If an event of that scale struck today, the damage would be catastrophic. Power grids could collapse, satellites could be disabled, and the internet itself could grind to a halt. Experts estimate that recovery could take months or even years, plunging modern civilization into chaos. The only reason we haven't faced such a disaster yet is luck. The storms keep coming, but most miss us. One day, one way. And this is what makes the magnetic shield both comforting and terrifying. It is strong enough to protect us, yet fragile enough to remind us that it could fail. Scientists monitoring the field have found strange anomalies, localized weak spots, sudden shifts in direction, mysterious behavior we don't fully understand. The South Atlantic anomaly, for example, is growing larger, and spacecraft passing through it are forced to shut down sensitive instruments to avoid damage. These anomalies could be early signs of a reversal, or they could simply be part of the field's natural fluctuation. Either way, they are proof that our shield is not eternal. When you step outside and feel the sun's warmth on your skin, it's easy to forget that the same star unleashes enough energy to strip the atmosphere from a planet. It's easy to take for granted that Earth alone, among all the rocky planets of the inner solar system, still holds onto oceans, air, and life. Mercury is blasted by radiation, Venus is smothered under crushing heat and acid clouds, Mars, once promising, is now a barren wasteland. Earth stands apart, not because of chance alone, but because of the invisible shield that keeps it alive. And if that shield falters, the difference between Earth and Mars could vanish faster than we dare to admit. This realization adds a layer of humility to our place in the universe. The magnetic field is not something we control. It is not a technology we built or a system we maintain. It is a gift of geology, the result of a molten core kept alive by forces billions of years old. Our survival depends on it, yet we can do nothing to strengthen it, nothing to replace it, nothing to command it. All we can do is observe, study, and prepare for the day when its strength wanes or its poles flip. And if that happens in our lifetimes, humanity will face one of its greatest tests yet: how to endure when the invisible shield that has protected us for all of human history begins to fail. The magnetic field may be invisible, but its importance could not be clearer. It is the silent guardian, the cosmic shield, the reason life thrives here and not elsewhere. But like every protection Earth offers, it is not permanent, and it comes with a warning: nothing lasts forever. The question is whether we are ready to live in a world where our shield weakens, where cosmic forces press closer, where survival depends not on what Earth gives us, but on how quickly we adapt when it takes that protection away. And if you think the magnetic field is the only mystery hiding in plain sight, look to the oceans, because beneath their shimmering surface lies another realm of secrets, depths so vast and unexplored that they might hold the key to Earth's next great catastrophe, or its next great discovery. The oceans cover more than 70% of our planet, yet they remain one of the greatest mysteries we have. We gaze up at the stars and send spacecraft into deep space, but the truth is, we know more about the surface of Mars than we do about the depths of Earth's own seas. Beneath the waves lies an alien world, one filled with mountains taller than Everest, trenches deeper than anything on land, creatures so bizarre they defy imagination, and forces powerful enough to reshape the climate and the future of life itself. The ocean is not just a backdrop for beauty and mystery, it is a realm of secrets, and some of those secrets may hold both the wonders and the dangers that determine humanity's survival. Start with the sheer scale of it. The Pacific Ocean alone covers more area than all of Earth's land combined, stretching across vast distances that hide ecosystems we've barely glimpsed. The Mariana Trench plunges nearly 7 miles down, so deep that if Mount Everest were placed at its bottom, its peak would still be underwater. Down there, the pressure is over 1,000 times greater than what we experience at the surface, enough to crush most machines built by humans. Yet life exists there, strange glowing creatures that drift in darkness, organisms that thrive in conditions so extreme they would kill almost anything else. These life forms are more than curiosities. They may hold the key to understanding how life began on Earth and even how it might exist on other worlds. But they also remind us that the ocean is not ours to control. It is a world apart, indifferent to our presence, with powers that dwarf our own. One of the most haunting mysteries of the deep is sound. In 1997, scientists recorded a low-frequency noise in the Pacific Ocean, so loud it was picked up by sensors thousands of miles apart. It became known as the blue. At first, some believed it could be a colossal sea creature, unlike anything we've ever known. Later, many concluded it was likely the sound of icebergs cracking and breaking apart. But the fact remains, the ocean is filled with unexplained noises, signals that suggest vast processes or perhaps life forms we do not yet understand. And for every answer the ocean gives, it raises 10 new questions. What else is out there hidden in the depths, beyond the reach of our lights and machines? The oceans are not just a source of mystery, they are also a source of danger. Locked beneath the seafloor are vast reserves of methane hydrates, ice-like structures that trap methane gas under high pressure. If released suddenly, through warming or seismic activity, they could trigger massive climate shifts. Some scientists believe past extinction events may have been fueled by sudden methane releases that warmed the planet to catastrophic levels. Imagine the oceans bubbling with gas, the atmosphere thickening with heat-trapping methane, and the climate spiraling out of control in a matter of decades. It's a nightmare scenario, but it's not impossible. The oceans hold more than beauty. They hold the power to destabilize the entire planet. And then there are the currents, the invisible rivers flowing within the seas that regulate Earth's climate. The Gulf Stream, for example, carries warm water from the tropics toward Europe, giving the continent its relatively mild climate. But studies suggest that these currents are slowing, disrupted by melting ice and changing temperatures. If they collapse, Europe could plunge into freezing winters while other parts of the world face unbearable heat and drought. Entire weather systems depend on these currents, yet they are vulnerable to the changes we are already triggering. The oceans are not passive, they are active players in the story of climate, and their shifting rhythms could decide the fate of billions. Even closer to shore, the ocean reveals its dual nature. It gives life, feeding us with fish and connecting us through trade, but it also takes life through storms, tsunamis, and rising tides. Coastal cities around the world are already watching the seas creep higher, swallowing beaches, flooding streets, and threatening to erase entire nations. For island countries in the Pacific, this is not a distant threat. It is happening now. Villages are being abandoned, freshwater supplies contaminated by salt, entire cultures facing the possibility of exile from their ancestral lands. The ocean, once a source of identity and survival, is turning into an unstoppable force of displacement. And yet, for all the dangers, the oceans also offer glimpses of hope. The bizarre organisms that thrive in hydrothermal vents, where scalding water rich with minerals gushes from the seafloor, prove that life can exist in conditions utterly alien to us. These creatures feed not on sunlight but on chemicals, hinting at how life might exist on frozen moons like Europa or Enceladus. The oceans may be a mirror for the cosmos, showing us that life does not require gentle conditions to survive. It only requires the right chemistry, the right spark, and the right resilience. In that sense, the oceans are both a warning and an inspiration. What's most striking is how little of the ocean we have actually explored. Estimates suggest we have only mapped around 20% of the seafloor in detail, leaving most of it unknown. Each expedition reveals new species, new landscapes, new phenomena. And if we know so little about the ocean on our own planet, how can we pretend we understand the full scope of Earth's dangers? It's like living in a house where most of the rooms are locked, where strange sounds echo through the walls, and yet we go about our lives as if nothing could surprise us. The truth is that the ocean is a frontier more alien than space, and it is right here beneath our skies. Perhaps the greatest lesson the oceans teach us is humility. They remind us that Earth is not fully tamed, that mysteries remain beyond our grasp, and that power lies hidden in places we rarely think about. We depend on the oceans for survival, for oxygen, for food, for climate stability, yet we treat them as if they are infinite, immune to our actions. Pollution, overfishing, and warming are already pushing marine systems to the brink. Coral reefs, which shelter a quarter of marine life, are bleaching and dying. Species vanish before we even discover them. We are losing pieces of the ocean's puzzle without ever knowing what picture they might have completed. The oceans are not just vast bodies of water, they are the beating heart of Earth, regulating life in ways we are only beginning to grasp. They can nurture, they can destroy, and they can surprise us with wonders we can't yet imagine. But the most unsettling truth is this: the oceans will outlast us, whether they rise and drown our cities, whether their currents shift and collapse civilizations, whether they keep secrets of creatures we never encounter. The oceans will continue their restless rhythms long after humanity is gone. They are the oldest mirror of Earth's mysteries and the clearest reminder that our control is an illusion. So the next time you stand at the shore looking at the waves rolling in, think of what lies beyond that horizon. Think of the depths that remain untouched, the secrets hidden in darkness, the power held in silence. The oceans are not simply water, they are Earth's other world, a world we barely know, yet one that may decide the future of our own. And if you think the seas are the only restless force shaping our planet, wait until you see the ground beneath your feet shift, tear, and break apart, because Earth itself is never still, and the fury of tectonic plates can turn landscapes into ruins in a single instant. The ground beneath our feet feels like the most solid thing in the world. We build our homes, our cities, our monuments on it, believing it will always stay firm and unshaken. But this sense of stability is an illusion, because Earth's surface is not a fixed shell. It is a restless puzzle of massive plates that are constantly drifting, colliding, and tearing apart. These plates float on a sea of molten rock deep below, and every time they move, the world changes. Sometimes the movements are slow and unnoticed, taking place over millions of years, but other times the tension between plates snaps violently, releasing energy with such force that the ground convulses, mountains rise, and cities crumble. This is the fury of earthquakes and tectonic activity, one of the most terrifying reminders that Earth is alive and we are merely guests on its surface. The science behind earthquakes begins with plate tectonics. Earth's crust is broken into several massive slabs that move a few centimeters each year, driven by the heat from the planet's core. Where these plates meet, they grind against each other, slide past each other, or collide head-on. These boundaries are the birthplaces of earthquakes, volcanoes, and mountain ranges. But the real danger lies in the tension that builds as plates get stuck. For decades or centuries, immense pressure accumulates, locked in silence. Then in an instant, the fault gives way, releasing energy that radiates through the Earth as seismic waves. What we experience as shaking ground is really the planet releasing stress it has been holding for generations. Throughout history, earthquakes have left scars, not only on the land, but also on human memory. In 1556, the deadliest earthquake in recorded history struck China's Shaanxi province, killing an estimated 30,000 people. Entire towns collapsed, with homes carved into cliffs crumbling into dust. In 1906, San Francisco was torn apart by a quake that ignited fires lasting for days, reducing much of the city to ash and rubble. More recently, in 2010, Haiti was devastated by a 7.0 magnitude quake that killed hundreds of thousands and left millions homeless, showing how modern civilization is still vulnerable to Earth's ancient forces. Each of these disasters carries the same chilling message: no matter how advanced our technology, no matter how high we build our towers, we cannot prevent the ground itself from betraying us. But earthquakes do more than destroy buildings. They reshape entire landscapes. In 2004, a massive earthquake off the coast of Sumatra triggered a tsunami that roared across the Indian Ocean, killing over 200,000 people in more than a dozen countries. The quake shifted the seafloor by meters, displacing billions of tons of water and unleashing walls of water taller than buildings. In Japan in 2011, another undersea quake produced a tsunami that devastated coastal towns, killed thousands, and triggered the Fukushima nuclear disaster. These events are stark reminders that earthquakes are not confined to the shaking of land. They can ripple outward, magnifying destruction on a continental scale. What makes earthquakes especially terrifying is their unpredictability. We can track storms, we can predict seasons, but earthquakes strike without warning. Scientists have become adept at mapping fault lines and calculating probabilities, but no one can yet say exactly when the next big one will hit. Along California's San Andreas Fault, for instance, experts warn of the inevitable big one, a quake expected to devastate Los Angeles or San Francisco. The question is not if, but when. In regions like Turkey, Iran or Nepal, where cities sit atop major fault lines, millions live each day with the possibility that the earth beneath them could rip open without a second's notice. Yet earthquakes are not just about destruction, they are also about creation. The towering Himalayas, the world's highest mountains, were born from the collision of the Indian and Eurasian plates. The Andes in South America owe their existence to the clash of plates along the Pacific. Even the very continents we live on were shaped by countless earthquakes over billions of years. In a way, the same forces that tear down our cities also built the land we stand on. Earthquakes are part of the endless cycle of destruction and renewal, a reminder that creation is never gentle. Modern civilization, however, faces a unique danger from earthquakes. Our interconnected world depends on fragile systems, power grids, communication networks, transportation hubs. A single massive quake could cripple these systems, leaving millions without electricity, clean water, or food supplies. In densely populated megacities like Tokyo, Jakarta, or Mexico City, an earthquake is not just a natural disaster, it is a potential trigger for humanitarian crises that ripple across the globe. The global economy itself could tremble if a quake disrupts supply chains, ports, or financial centers. Unlike ancient times when the collapse of one city did not topple the world, today we are so connected that one seismic shock could affect nations far beyond the epicenter. But earthquakes also carry mysteries we still do not understand. Sometimes they strike in regions thought to be safe, far from known fault lines. In places like the central United States, unusual quakes have raised questions about hidden faults or even human activities like fracking, which injects fluid into the ground and may trigger seismic activity. In other cases, earthquakes come in strange sequences, with swarms of small tremors that seem to warn of something bigger, but often do not. Scientists are still trying to decode these signals, searching for a way to predict the unpredictable. Even more unsettling are the so-called megathrust earthquakes, the most powerful type, occurring at subduction zones where one plate is forced beneath another. These quakes can reach magnitudes of 9.0 or higher, releasing energy equivalent to billions of tons of TNT. The 2011 Japan quake was one such event, as was the 2004 Indian Ocean disaster. Scientists warn that other regions like the Cascadia subduction zone off the Pacific Northwest of the United States are long overdue for a megathrust event. If it happens, the shaking could devastate cities like Seattle and Portland, while the resulting tsunami could obliterate coastal towns from California to Canada. Millions of lives could be at risk in a single day, and the aftermath could take decades to recover from. Yet despite the destruction, earthquakes inspire awe because they remind us of the Earth's immense power. The ground that feels so stable is anything but. It is a thin shell floating on a sea of fire, constantly shifting beneath us. Every mountain, every valley, every coastline is proof of this restless motion. And while we fear the sudden devastation of earthquakes, they are also the sculptors of the world we know. Without them, there would be no mountains to climb, no fertile valleys carved by tectonic shifts, no landscapes that inspire wonder. In their violence lies creation, and in their unpredictability lies a lesson that Earth is alive and we are part of its endless story. Perhaps the most haunting thought is how small we are compared to the forces at play. A single fault slip can release more energy than the most powerful bombs ever built. A quake lasting less than a minute can undo centuries of human achievement. Earthquakes do not negotiate, they do not discriminate, and they do not wait for us to be ready. They come when the Earth decides, reminding us that our lives, our cities, even our civilizations, rest on ground that is never truly steady. So the next time you feel the solid floor beneath your feet, remember that it is only an illusion of stability. Beneath that thin crust lies restless motion, a force that has shaped continents and toppled empires. Earthquakes are not a question of if, but when, and their fury is a reminder that the planet we call home is never as still as it seems. And if the quaking ground isn't enough to unsettle you, consider this. Long before we built our cities, our ancestors told stories of floods that swallowed the world whole. Were they just myths, or were they memories of disasters written into the very bones of human culture? That's where the next chapter begins. For as long as humans have told stories, one theme seems to appear again and again across cultures separated by oceans, languages, and millennia. The Great Flood, from Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica, from India to the Pacific Islands. Ancient traditions speak of waters rising, swallowing lands, and leaving only a handful of survivors to carry the memory forward. Skeptics may dismiss these tales as coincidence or allegory, but the sheer persistence of the flood narrative suggests something deeper, an echo of real events that scarred human history so profoundly they became myth. And perhaps these myths are not just relics of the past, but warnings for the future, reminders of how fragile human civilization is in the face of Earth's waters. One of the most famous flood stories is that of Noah in the Hebrew Bible. According to the story, God, angered by humanity's corruption, sends a flood to cleanse the world, sparing only Noah, his family, and the animals he shelters in an ark. But centuries before Noah, another story was etched into clay tablets in Mesopotamia, the Epic of Gilgamesh. In this tale, the hero learns from Utnapishtim, a man who survived a great flood sent by the gods. The parallels are striking. A chosen man, a great boat, animals preserved, waters that engulf the land, and a final renewal of life. Were these tales born independently, or were they memories of a catastrophe passed down and reshaped over generations? Beyond Mesopotamia, the myths continue. In Hindu tradition, the god Vishnu appears as a fish to warn Manu of a flood destined to destroy the world. Manu builds a boat, ties it to the horn of the divine fish, and survives as the waters recede, becoming the ancestor of humankind. In Greek mythology, Zeus sends a deluge to punish humanity, and Deucalion and Pyrrha survive in a chest, later repopulating the world. In the Americas, Aztec legends speak of 4 previous worlds destroyed by floods, fires, or other catastrophes, with ours being the 5th. Even among Pacific Islanders, tales of islands sinking beneath the waves or ancestors fleeing on canoes echo the same theme. What makes these stories so haunting is not just their similarity, but the possibility that they preserve a distorted memory of real geological events. At the end of the last ice age, around 12,000 years ago, massive ice sheets that had covered much of North America and Europe began to melt. Sea levels rose more than 300 feet, drowning coastlines and reshaping continents. Entire land bridges, like the one connecting Siberia to Alaska, vanished beneath the ocean, forever changing migration and settlement patterns. Imagine living in a coastal village, watching the sea creep higher year after year, swallowing forests, homes, and sacred sites. To those people, it may well have felt like the entire world was drowning. Their descendants carried the story forward, and what we now call myth may be a cultural memory of that great inundation. There is also evidence of more sudden events that could have inspired specific flood legends. Around 7,600 years ago, it's believed that rising Mediterranean waters broke through into the Black Sea basin, flooding it catastrophically. Archaeologists suggest that this event may have displaced thousands of people and etched itself into their oral traditions. Some even argue that this could have been the origin of the biblical flood story. Likewise, geological records point to massive tsunamis triggered by volcanic eruptions, or underwater landslides, such as the Storegga slide off the coast of Norway 8,000 years ago, which sent waves hundreds of feet high crashing onto nearby land. To survivors, such an event would not have seemed local. It would have felt like the end of the world. But myths are not just records of disaster. They are warnings wrapped in story. Ancient peoples may not have understood tectonics, glacial cycles, or oceanography, but they understood that water could destroy civilizations. They encoded their experiences into tales designed to be remembered, passed down as both cultural heritage and survival lesson. Beware the waters these stories whisper. They have risen before. They will rise again. Today, as sea levels climb due to climate change, as hurricanes grow stronger and storm surges flood coastal cities, these ancient warnings feel eerily relevant. Perhaps the old myths are resurfacing, not as superstition but as prophecy. Yet what makes flood myths so compelling is also their universality. How could so many cultures with no contact between them arrive at such similar stories? Some argue that water as a destructive force is simply a natural metaphor for chaos and rebirth, and so civilizations naturally gravitated toward it in their myths. But the specificity of details, the chosen survivor, the ark, the animals, the global devastation, suggests more than metaphor. These stories seem less like symbolic inventions and more like fragments of shared history, distorted and reshaped by centuries of retelling. They remind us that myth and memory often overlap, and that truth can survive not in exact detail but in persistent pattern. Flood stories also hold a psychological power. Water is both life-giving and life-taking. It nourishes crops, provides food, and sustains civilizations, but it can also drown, erode, and obliterate. This duality makes water the perfect medium for myth, a force of creation and destruction, a cleanser and a killer. In myth after myth, the flood is not just punishment, it is a reset, a way for the world to begin anew. Perhaps ancient peoples recognized a profound truth. Survival is not guaranteed, civilizations collapse, and humanity itself is always one disaster away from needing to start over. In modern times, we see floods not as myths, but as disasters measured in dollars and death tolls. Hurricane Katrina in 2005 drowned New Orleans, displacing hundreds of thousands and reshaping the city forever. In 2010, floods in Pakistan submerged a fifth of the country, affecting over 20 million people. Coastal cities like Miami, Jakarta, and Dhaka now face the creeping rise of the seas, a slow-motion flood that will eventually force millions to migrate. Our satellites and sensors may explain the mechanics, but the experience for survivors is timeless, a feeling of helplessness as water reclaims the land. In a strange way, we are living through the same kinds of stories our ancestors mythologized, only now with cameras and data to record them. Perhaps that is the ultimate lesson of the flood myths. They are not simply tales of the past, they are reminders of Earth's cycles. Civilizations rise, but water always wins. Cities may be grand, but oceans are patient. The flood may come as a sudden wall of water, or as a creeping tide over centuries, but it will come. Our ancestors warned us through stories, and their voices still echo in our myths. The real question is whether we will listen. And as we ponder the waters rising around us, another question emerges. Floods are only one face of Earth's wrath, fire is the other. Because if water can cleanse the world, then fire can erase it in an instant. And deep beneath the Earth, volcanoes are already preparing their next move. There are places on Earth where the ground itself breathes, where heat and fire erupt from the depths in violent displays of power. These are volcanoes, reminders that beneath the crust we stand on lies a seething ocean of molten rock, restless and unstoppable. To most people, volcanoes are spectacles of destruction, explosions of lava, clouds of ash blotting out the sun. rivers of fire swallowing everything in their path. But volcanoes are more than disasters. They are creators and destroyers, builders of land and shapers of climate, forces that have both birthed new worlds and brought civilizations to their knees. To understand volcanoes is to understand that Earth is alive, and its heart beats with fire. The story begins with magma, molten rock produced deep within Earth's mantle. Pressure builds, cracks form, and eventually magma forces its way upward, erupting through weaknesses in the crust. Sometimes the eruption is slow and steady, spilling lava that creeps across the land, burning but predictable. Other times, it is explosive, blasting rock, ash, and toxic gases miles into the air with the force of nuclear weapons. The difference lies in chemistry. Magma rich in silica traps gas until it bursts violently, while thinner magma lets gas escape, creating calmer flows. But whether gentle or violent, each eruption is part of a cycle that has been shaping Earth since long before humans walked its surface. Volcanoes have built much of the world we know. The Hawaiian Islands are nothing more than piles of hardened lava that rose from the seafloor, created by a hotspot spewing magma for millions of years. Iceland straddles the mid-Atlantic ridge, where plates are pulling apart and lava constantly emerges, building new land as Europe and North America drift away from each other. Even Mount Fuji in Japan and Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa are monuments to volcanic forces. Their towering peaks remind us of Earth's power to push land skyward from its fiery depths. Without volcanoes, there would be no mountains like these, no fertile soils enriched by ash, no new land rising from the sea. In this sense, volcanoes are not only destroyers, they are the planet's architect. But the destructive side of volcanoes cannot be underestimated. History is littered with their fury. In 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius erupted with terrifying speed, burying the Roman cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum under ash and preserving them for centuries as grim time capsules of disaster. In 1815, Mount Tambora in Indonesia erupted in one of the most powerful events in recorded history. The explosion was so massive that it ejected enough ash and sulfur into the atmosphere to block sunlight, plunging the world into what became known as the Year Without a Summer. Crops failed across Europe and North America, leading to famine, disease, and social unrest. This single eruption altered global history, reminding humanity that volcanoes are not just local events, they can affect the entire planet. Modern times have seen their share of devastation as well. In 1980, Mount St. Helens in the United States erupted, its explosion flattening forests, melting glaciers, and sending a plume of ash 15 miles into the sky. In 1991, Mount Pinatubo in the Philippines erupted, ejecting so much material into the atmosphere that it temporarily cooled the Earth's climate by nearly a degree. And today, Yellowstone in the United States sits atop one of the world's largest supervolcanoes, a ticking time bomb that has erupted in the past with a force thousands of times greater than Mount St. Helens. If it erupted again, much of North America would be blanketed in ash. Agriculture would collapse, and the global climate could shift for decades. These are not science fiction scenarios, they are geological inevitabilities. The only question is when. Volcanoes also carry mysteries that science has yet to fully explain. Why do some volcanoes erupt after centuries of silence, while others remain active constantly? What triggers the exact moment of eruption? Despite satellites, seismic instruments and gas sensors, prediction remains imperfect. Communities living in the shadows of volcanoes often have only hours or days of warning before disaster strikes. Entire cultures have lived with this uncertainty for generations, from the people of Java who revere Mount Merapi as both a god and a threat, to the Hawaiians who honor Pele, the goddess of fire, believing eruptions to be her way of reshaping the land. Volcanoes inspire not just fear but reverence, because they embody forces humans cannot control. Beyond their immediate destruction, volcanoes also hold secrets that shape the entire planet. They are part of Earth's climate engine, releasing carbon dioxide, water vapor, and sulfur compounds that influence the atmosphere. Over millions of years, volcanic activity has contributed to the greenhouse gases that keep Earth warm enough for life. At the same time, massive eruptions can trigger cooling by blocking sunlight with ash and aerosols. Some scientists even believe that volcanic winters caused by ancient eruptions contributed to mass extinctions. When you realize that the fate of life on Earth has been swayed by mountains belching fire, the scale of their influence becomes undeniable. And volcanoes are not confined to Earth. Across the solar system, they appear as universal expressions of planetary energy. Mars has Olympus Mons, the largest volcano in the solar system, so vast it could cover the state of Arizona. Jupiter's moon Io is scarred by constant eruptions, its surface a shifting hellscape of lava flows. Even icy moons like Enceladus and Europa exhibit cryovolcanism, where instead of molten rock, plumes of water and ice erupt into space. These alien volcanoes remind us that wherever planets and moons hold heat and pressure, eruptions are inevitable. Earth's volcanoes are just one expression of a cosmic process, proof that fire is as fundamental to worlds as water or air. Still, what makes volcanoes most unsettling is how closely tied they are to human survival. Fertile soils near volcanic slopes feed millions. Cities thrive on their slopes despite the risks, because people gamble on the benefits of rich farmland and steady water sources. Yet time and again, the volcanoes remind us of the cost. Entire civilizations have fallen because they underestimated the mountain's wrath. The Minoan civilization on Crete may have been shattered by the eruption of Thera, modern Santorini, around 1600 BC. A blast so powerful it may have inspired the legend of Atlantis. The eruptions, tsunamis, ash fallout, and climate effects rippled across the ancient world, changing history forever. Today, scientists monitor volcanoes with cutting-edge technology, but even with all our advances, we remain vulnerable. Lava flows can be diverted, ash clouds tracked, but no human invention can stop a supervolcano once it decides to erupt. The only real defense is knowledge, preparation, and humility. We can evacuate, we can rebuild, but we cannot prevent. And perhaps that is why volcanoes capture the imagination so powerfully. They are reminders of a truth we try to forget, that the Earth is not ours to command. It is alive, restless, and capable of reshaping our world in the span of a single day. Volcanoes are not merely natural disasters, they are windows into Earth's soul. They show us where the planet is weakest, where its inner heat bursts forth, where creation and destruction intertwine. They remind us that fire is not just a tool humans discovered, it is a force Earth has wielded since long before us. And as we look to the future, we must recognize that the fire below will burn long after we are gone. But if fire from below is terrifying, imagine fire from above, because while volcanoes can plunge the world into darkness, a rock from space can do the same in an instant. And unlike volcanoes, it doesn't need to wait for pressure to build. It only needs to hit. Every day, Earth is bombarded by debris from space. Most of it is harmless, tiny dust particles that burn up in the atmosphere as shooting stars, creating brief, beautiful flashes across the night sky. But every so often, something larger arrives. A rock the size of a car, a building, or even a mountain hurtles toward our planet at tens of thousands of miles per hour, carrying energy beyond imagination. When such objects strike, the results are apocalyptic, unlike earthquakes, which are confined to regions, or volcanoes, which devastate continents. Asteroid and comet impacts are global disasters. They do not just destroy cities, they can wipe out species, change climates, and alter the trajectory of life itself. Earth's history has been shaped by these collisions, and its future may be too. The most famous impact in history is the one that ended the reign of the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. A rock roughly 6 miles wide slammed into what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, creating the Chicxulub crater. The energy released was equivalent to billions of nuclear bombs. In an instant, forests ignited, tsunamis swept coastlines, and shockwaves leveled everything for hundreds of miles. But the most devastating effects came after. Dust, ash, and vaporized rock were hurled into the atmosphere, blocking out sunlight for months or even years. Photosynthesis collapsed, food chains broke down, and 3/4 of Earth's species perished. The mighty dinosaurs, which had ruled the planet for over 150 million years, vanished in the aftermath. And yet, in their absence, mammals thrived, eventually giving rise to us. The impact was both destruction and opportunity, a reminder that sometimes catastrophe is the architect of change. But the Chicxulub impact was not unique. Earth's surface bears the scars of many ancient collisions. The Vredefort crater in South Africa, nearly 200 miles across, the Sudbury Basin in Canada, and the Tunguska event in Siberia, where an object exploded in the atmosphere with the force of a massive bomb, flattening 800 square miles of forest. Fortunately, Tunguska struck a remote area, but if it had exploded over a major city, millions could have died. In 2013, a smaller meteor exploded over Chelyabinsk, Russia, shattering windows and injuring more than 1,000 people. It was a stark reminder that impacts are not just relics of the past, they are ongoing, and we are still vulnerable. What makes cosmic impacts so terrifying is their unpredictability. Asteroids orbit the Sun in belts and scattered populations, some with stable paths, others with chaotic ones. Many near-Earth objects have been catalogued, their orbits tracked carefully by astronomers, but countless others remain undiscovered, too small to be detected until they are dangerously close. The Chelyabinsk meteor, for example, went unnoticed until it was already in our skies. Imagine a rock the size of a football field or larger, spotted only days or hours before impact. The terrifying truth is that while we can map the heavens with astonishing precision, our ability to defend against an incoming asteroid remains limited. Scientists have begun working on solutions. NASA's DART mission in 2022 successfully tested the idea of deflecting an asteroid by deliberately crashing a spacecraft into it, altering its trajectory slightly. The experiment was hailed as a proof of concept, a first step toward planetary defense. But what if the asteroid were larger, arriving sooner, or approaching from an unexpected direction? Our defenses are still in their infancy, and Earth's history shows us that impacts are not rare, they are inevitable. The only question is when the next significant one will arrive. The fear of impacts is not just about destruction, it is also about the unknown. A large asteroid could trigger tsunamis, firestorms, and shockwaves. But the greatest danger comes from what happens afterward. Dust and aerosols filling the sky could plunge Earth into an impact winter, blocking sunlight, collapsing agriculture, and starving billions. In effect, a single rock from space could unravel the web of modern civilization in months. Some scientists warn that an impact even a fraction the size of Chicxulub could disrupt the fragile systems we depend on: power grids, food supplies, and global trade. The irony is chilling. The same global networks that make us resilient could also make us more vulnerable to a disruption that spans continents. Yet cosmic impacts are not only threats, they are also origins. Many researchers believe that life itself may owe its beginnings to asteroids and comets, which could have delivered water and organic molecules to the young Earth billions of years ago. In that sense, the same rocks that threatened to destroy us may have once seeded the very conditions that allowed us to exist. The duality is poetic, creation and destruction carried in the same stone, depending only on timing. Culturally, impacts have always haunted the human imagination. Ancient people saw shooting stars and comets as omens of doom, harbingers of disaster. In many traditions, fire from the sky is a motif tied to punishment or cleansing, echoing perhaps faint memories of real events. Even today, Hollywood films play on this fear, from Deep Impact to Armageddon, dramatizing scenarios where humanity races to stop an incoming rock. The fascination comes from the sheer scale of the threat. Unlike floods, earthquakes, or volcanoes, an impact does not feel local, it feels planetary. It is the kind of disaster that unites humanity in fear, because there is nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. And then there is the unnerving possibility that we might not see it coming. Every year, astronomers discover objects passing within lunar distance of Earth, cosmic near misses that could have spelled catastrophe. Some of these are only spotted after they have passed, their existence unknown until it was already too late. If luck is the only thing keeping us safe, then it is a fragile safety indeed. Imagine waking up one morning to news that an asteroid a mile wide has been spotted, its trajectory aimed directly at Earth. Governments scramble, scientists debate, panic spreads. The countdown begins, not in decades or centuries, but in months. What would humanity do? Could we unite in time to attempt deflection? Or would divisions and delays doom us to witness the sky falling? These are not idle questions. They are scenarios that researchers and policymakers quietly prepare for, knowing that one day the alarm may come. The unsettling truth is that cosmic impacts are woven into Earth's history. They have shaped continents, altered climates, and reset the evolutionary clock. They will happen again, whether in our lifetime or 1,000 years from now. The universe is not empty. It is filled with wandering rocks, silent travelers indifferent to the worlds they strike. Earth, for all its beauty and resilience, is a target in a cosmic shooting gallery. And yet, Within this danger lies perspective. The knowledge that life can be erased in an instant forces us to appreciate its fragility. Every sunrise, every breath, every moment exists because we are living in a rare lull between catastrophes. The dinosaurs never knew the rock was coming. We at least have the power to look up, to see, to prepare. But preparation requires urgency, and urgency often comes only after disaster. Perhaps the greatest question is whether humanity will act before the next strike, or only after the fires have already fallen. So, the next time you see a meteor streak across the night sky, consider this. It could be a harmless speck of dust, burning beautifully before vanishing into nothing. Or it could be a reminder of something larger, lurking in the darkness, waiting for its turn to change the world, because one day, a rock will fall again. And when it does, Earth will tremble, the skies will darken, and humanity will learn once more how small we are in the face of the cosmos. But if rocks from the sky remind us of death from above, Earth has another silent killer that operates from within, an enemy without fire or floods, without quakes or impacts. It is invisible, creeping and inevitable, the slow unraveling of climate itself. When people hear the word climate, they often think of changing weather patterns, rising temperatures, or polar bears stranded on melting ice. But climate is more than just a trend. It is the invisible framework that dictates whether civilizations thrive or collapse, whether ecosystems flourish or vanish. The hidden truth is that Earth's climate has never been stable. It has swung wildly between extremes, sometimes over millions of years, other times in the blink of an eye. And history shows that when the climate shifts, so does everything else. Crops, economies, wars, and even the survival of entire civilization. Today, we stand on the edge of another shift, one we've triggered ourselves, and the traps hidden within the climate system may hold surprises far worse than most of us imagine. To understand these traps, we need to look backward. The last ice age, which ended around 12,000 years ago, left vast glaciers covering much of North America and Europe. Then, in a geological instant, the world warmed, the ice retreated, and sea levels surged. That transition was not smooth, it was chaotic. Evidence suggests that sudden bursts of meltwater flooded into the oceans, disrupting global currents and plunging regions back into cold spells, even as the rest of the planet warmed. This pattern, known as the Younger Dryas, is a chilling reminder that the climate does not always move gradually. It can lurch forward violently, throwing ecosystems and human societies into turmoil. Imagine waking up in a world where winters suddenly stretch for decades or summers scorch with relentless heat. Ancient people lived through such upheavals, and their myths, especially those about floods and frozen worlds, may carry echoes of these traumatic transitions. But the hidden traps of climate aren't just in the past, they're waiting in the present. One of the most alarming is the permafrost of the Arctic. Beneath frozen ground lies immense stores of carbon, locked away for tens of thousands of years. As the planet warms, this permafrost begins to thaw, releasing methane, a greenhouse gas far more potent than carbon dioxide. This creates a vicious feedback loop. Warming melts permafrost, permafrost releases methane. Methane accelerates warming, and so the cycle spirals. Scientists call this a tipping point, a threshold beyond which the system begins to unravel on its own, unstoppable by human hands. If vast amounts of methane are released, the climate could shift not in centuries but in decades, with catastrophic consequences for agriculture, coastlines, and human survival. Another trap lies in the oceans, those vast regulators of climate that absorb 90% of the excess heat generated by greenhouse gases. For now, they are buffering us from the worst, but this comes at a cost. Warmer waters disrupt marine ecosystems, bleach coral reefs, and melt ice sheets from below. More importantly, the oceans drive global currents, the conveyor belts that move warm and cold water around the globe, balancing climates from the tropics to the poles. If these currents weaken or collapse, entire regions could be thrown into chaos. Europe could freeze, Asia could face droughts, and monsoon systems that billions depend on could fail. The Gulf Stream, one of the most important currents, is already slowing, a warning sign that the ocean engine is stalling. When it does, it won't just shift weather, it could destabilize food supplies and economies worldwide. And then there are the ice sheets themselves. Greenland and Antarctica together hold enough ice to raise sea levels by more than 200 feet. No one expects this to happen overnight. but the rate of melting is accelerating. Glaciers that were once thought stable are now collapsing into the sea, carving massive icebergs that drift like floating skyscrapers. Even a rise of a few feet in sea level would devastate coastal cities where hundreds of millions live. Places like New York, Miami, Shanghai, and Mumbai. Saltwater intrusion would poison freshwater sources, farmland would vanish, and mass migrations would begin. Humanity has never faced a challenge on this scale, and yet it may be inevitable within the lifetimes of today's children. The most sinister part of these traps is that they often remain hidden until it's too late. Take extreme weather events, hurricanes, wildfires, droughts, and floods. These are not new, but they are becoming stronger and more frequent, fueled by subtle shifts in climate. A warmer atmosphere holds more moisture, leading to heavier rains. Hotter summers dry forests, turning them into tinderboxes. Rising seas give storm surges more power. Flooding areas once thought safe. People experience these events as natural disasters, but they are in fact signals flashing warnings that the climate system is destabilizing. Each flood, each drought, each fire is a glimpse into a future where chaos becomes the norm. History is filled with examples of civilizations that ignored such warnings. The Akkadian Empire in Mesopotamia, one of the first great empires in history, collapsed around 4,200 years ago during a severe drought that turned fertile land into desert. The Maya civilization faced centuries of unstable rainfall that undermined its cities and power. Even the fall of the Roman Empire has been linked in part to climate shifts that disrupted agriculture and pushed populations into migration. Again and again, climate change has proven itself to be a silent killer of civilizations, striking not with sudden explosions but with relentless pressure that makes survival impossible. And now, for the first time, it is not natural cycles driving change, it is us. Some might argue that technology makes us immune to these threats. After all, we have global trade, advanced farming, and vast reserves of food, but our very interconnectedness is a weakness. A single failed harvest in one region can ripple across global markets, triggering shortages and unrest. Rising seas could displace hundreds of millions, creating refugee crises on a scale the world has never seen. Imagine not thousands, but entire nations forced to migrate. Political systems would strain, wars could ignite, and the fabric of global order could tear. Climate is not just about weather, it is about power, stability, and survival. Yet within this looming crisis lies an unsettling question. Have we already triggered the traps? Are we living not in the warning stage, but in the early collapse? Some scientists warn that we may already have passed tipping points, ice sheets destabilizing, permafrost thawing, coral reefs dying. If so, the climate may now be moving toward a state beyond our control, where even the most drastic cuts to emissions cannot halt the unraveling. That thought is both terrifying and humbling, a reminder that Earth does not negotiate. Still, humanity is not entirely helpless. Knowledge is power, and awareness of these hidden traps gives us a chance to prepare. Cities can be redesigned to withstand floods. Crops can be engineered to survive droughts. Energy systems can be transformed to reduce emissions. These steps may not stop every disaster, but they can buy us time, a buffer against the chaos. But preparation requires urgency, and urgency is often the one resource humans are slow to summon until the waters are already rising, until the fires are already burning, until it is too late. What makes climate's hidden traps so dangerous is their invisibility. They are not dramatic explosions like volcanoes or sudden impacts from the sky. They are gradual shifts, creeping changes that lull us into complacency until suddenly the world is unrecognizable. They are the silent unraveling of stability, the slow betrayal of the systems we rely on, the tightening of a noose we don't notice until it closes. And once triggered, these traps are merciless. They do not reset. They do not revert. They transform the planet into something new, indifferent to whether humanity fits into that new world or not. So the next time you hear about record-breaking heat, unusual storms, or melting ice, remember that these are not isolated events. They are pieces of a puzzle, fragments of a larger story unfolding. They are signs that the climate's traps are beginning to spring, one by one. And if we fail to act, the Earth will remind us, as it always has, that survival is never guaranteed. But if the climate can undo civilizations with silence and subtlety, Earth holds other forces far more sudden and explosive. Because while the slow traps of climate creep forward, there is another kind of danger lurking beneath us, one that can strike without warning, turning solid ground into liquid chaos, and that danger is the earthquake's violent cousin, the shifting of land itself through landslides and collapses that erase landscapes in an instant. Most people think of the earth as solid, steady, something they can trust to hold them up. But that trust can be shattered in an instant, when the ground itself decides to move. Landslides, avalanches, and collapses remind us that not all disasters come from the skies above or the fiery depths below. Sometimes danger is hiding in plain sight, waiting in the mountainsides, the cliffs, and even beneath the very cities we build. Landslides may not seem as dramatic as volcanoes or earthquakes, but they are silent killers, capable of burying villages in seconds, cutting off rivers, or even altering the course of history. They are the Earth's way of showing us that stability is always temporary, and nothing we build can ever be stronger than the ground itself when it decides to fall. At their core, landslides are simple. Gravity pulling loose material down a slope, but the causes behind them are anything but simple. Rain saturates the soil until it can no longer hold together. Earthquakes shake loose mountainsides that have been stable for centuries. Volcanic eruptions melt snow and ice, creating deadly flows of mud and rock known as lahars. Human activity adds another layer. Deforestation strips slopes of trees that once anchored them. Mining weakens foundations, and poorly planned construction puts homes directly in harm's way. Each of these factors alone is dangerous, but together they create ticking time bombs scattered across the planet. History is filled with chilling examples. In 1970, a massive earthquake in Peru triggered a landslide from Mount Huascarán, sending an avalanche of ice, rock and mud hurtling down at 200 miles per hour. It buried the towns of Yungay and Ranjarica, killing more than 20,000 people in moments. Survivors described it as a roaring wall of white that gave no time to run, no chance to escape. In 1985, Colombia's Nevado del Ruiz volcano erupted, melting glaciers that unleashed a lahar down the valley. The town of Armero was buried under a river of mud, killing These tragedies remind us that landslides are not slow events. They are sudden, violent, and final. The danger is not confined to history. In 2014, the small community of Oso in Washington state was destroyed when a hillside collapsed, sending mud and debris crashing through homes. 43 lives were lost in the event was shocking, not only because of the destruction, but because scientists had already identified the slope as unstable. Yet people continued to live there, trusting that disaster would never come in their lifetimes. That trust was misplaced. Around the world, millions of people live beneath similar slopes, often unaware that the ground above them is just one storm, one quake, or one heavy rainfall away from collapse. Landslides also shape the environment in ways we rarely appreciate. They can dam rivers, creating temporary lakes that later burst, sending floods downstream. They can strip mountains bare, altering ecosystems for centuries. Some even trigger chain reactions. One slope collapse destabilizes another, leading to cascading disasters that spread across entire regions. In Nepal, the fragile Himalayan slopes are notorious for such events, where heavy monsoon rains turn valleys into death traps. In Alaska, melting permafrost is destabilizing cliffs, leading to massive rockfalls that send tsunamis surging through fjords. These events may seem local, but their effects ripple outward, reminding us that Earth's surface is a fragile balance of forces always on the edge of giving way. What makes landslides particularly terrifying is their invisibility. A mountain may look stable, a hillside lush and green, but beneath the surface cracks and weaknesses are forming. Rainwater seeps into soil, roots loosen, pressure builds silently. Days, years, or decades may pass before the inevitable happens, and when it does, the warning is often no more than a rumble seconds before collapse. Unlike hurricanes or storms, landslides are difficult to predict. Scientists monitor rainfall, soil moisture, and slope movement, but certainty remains elusive. The result is that millions of people live in areas where disaster could strike at any time, with little more than hope standing between them and catastrophe. Human activity only worsens the risk. Roads cut into mountains destabilize slopes, quarries remove rock that once held hills together, and climate change intensifies rainfall and melts ice that once kept soil frozen in place. In places like South America and Southeast Asia, rapid deforestation for agriculture removes the natural anchors that kept hillsides from slipping. What once took centuries to destabilize now collapses within decades. And because development often pushes the poor and vulnerable into marginal lands, it is often those least able to rebuild who are most exposed. The psychological impact of landslides is also profound. Survivors describe them as one of the most terrifying disasters because they combine speed, noise, and total destruction. Unlike floods, where water sometimes allows escape, or storms where preparation buys time, landslides offer almost no warning. One moment you are in your home, the next you are buried beneath tons of mud and rock. Entire families, entire neighborhoods vanish without trace. To live in landslide-prone areas is to live with an invisible threat, one that can strike in silence, with no chance to fight back. But landslides are not only about destruction, they are also part of Earth's creative cycle. Over millennia, they carve valleys, deposit rich soils, and redirect rivers. In some cases, landslide lakes become ecosystems of their own, supporting new forms of life. The same forces that bury towns also build landscapes. In this way, landslides reflect the same paradox as earthquakes and volcanoes. They are both destructive and creative, erasing human works while shaping Earth's future. Still, for humans, the lesson is clear. The ground we stand on is not always as solid as it seems. Mountains crumble, hillsides fail, and cities built on slopes are playing with forces they cannot control. Technology can monitor, warn, and sometimes mitigate, but it cannot prevent. At best, we can move, adapt, and respect the signs when Earth whispers of instability. At worst, we ignore them until disaster roars down the slope. And perhaps the most chilling truth is that landslides are increasing. Climate change brings heavier rains, thawing ice, and rising seas that eat away at coastal cliffs. As human populations expand into mountainsides and floodplains, exposure grows. What once were remote disasters are now human tragedies, repeated year after year in headlines that blend into one another. We may call them natural disasters, but in many cases they are disasters of our own making, fueled by the choices we make about where and how to live. Imagine standing at the base of a mountain, looking up at a slope that seems eternal. It is easy to believe it will always stand, that it will never betray you, but deep inside that mountain, gravity is always pulling, water is always seeping, cracks are always spreading. The collapse is inevitable. It is only a matter of time. And when it comes, there is no stopping it. The earth will fall, and everything in its path will be erased. So the next time you see a mountain or a cliff, remember, beauty and danger often share the same face. The landscapes we admire are also the ones that can turn on us without warning. Landslides are not as dramatic as asteroids or supervolcanoes, but they are relentless, local reminders of Earth's instability. They tell us that no matter how solid the ground feels beneath our feet, nothing is truly permanent. And if collapsing mountains unsettle you, consider that sometimes it isn't the land that turns against us, but the air itself. Because in the atmosphere above, storms are brewing. Storms so powerful they can flatten cities, drown coasts, and remind us that Earth's wrath does not only rise from below, but also falls from the skies. When we think about the most terrifying forces on Earth, our minds often leap to the ground, shaking in an earthquake or fire erupting from a volcano. But some of the deadliest and most awe-inspiring forces don't come from beneath our feet at all. They form in the skies above. Storms have always haunted human imagination, from ancient myths of thunder gods to modern satellite images of swirling cyclones the size of continents. Unlike earthquakes or landslides that strike suddenly, storms announce themselves with ominous signs: darkened skies, rising winds, distant rumbles of thunder. Yet the warning does little to ease the terror when the full force arrives. Storms are both familiar and alien, everyday occurrences and cataclysmic events, reminding us that the very air we breathe can transform into a weapon of destruction. Hurricanes, typhoons, and cyclones, different names for the same phenomenon, are among the most powerful expressions of nature's fury. Born from warm ocean waters, these massive rotating storms feed on heat and moisture, growing stronger as they churn. Their vast size is deceptive, hundreds of miles across with an eye so calm it feels surreal, surrounded by walls of wind and rain strong enough to flatten entire cities. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina became a grim example of what happens when human infrastructure collides with nature's might. Levees in New Orleans failed, neighborhoods flooded, and thousands of lives were lost. The images of people stranded on rooftops waiting for rescue served as a haunting reminder that wealth, technology, and planning can crumble in the face of a storm's rage. More recently, Hurricane Maria devastated Puerto Rico in 2017, plunging the island into darkness for months, leaving scars that linger to this day. But the violence of storms isn't limited to tropical cyclones. Tornadoes, though smaller in scale, unleash concentrated destruction like no other weather event. A tornado can rip through a town in minutes, tearing homes from their foundations, hurling cars like toys, and shredding everything in its path. In 2011, a super outbreak across the United States produced hundreds of tornadoes in a matter of days, killing more than 3. Survivors described the sound as a freight train roaring through their neighborhoods, unstoppable and merciless. Unlike hurricanes, which can be tracked days in advance, tornadoes often appear with little warning, their lifespan sometimes measured in minutes, but the devastation they leave can last generations. And then there are thunderstorms, deceptively common yet capable of producing lethal surprises. Lightning, a sudden flash that rips through the sky, carries temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun. Every year, thousands are struck, many killed instantly, others scarred for life. The sheer randomness of lightning makes it terrifying. It can strike a lone tree in a field, a mountaintop hiker, or a city street without warning. Accompanying hail can smash crops, dent vehicles, and even kill livestock. Flash floods triggered by intense rainfall transform familiar streets into rivers, sweeping away cars and people in seconds. It is this unpredictability that makes storms so unnerving. The line between a passing shower and a deadly disaster is thinner than most people realize. As if the raw power of storms wasn't enough, climate change is intensifying them. Warmer oceans provide more fuel for hurricanes, making them stronger and wetter. Rising sea levels give storm surges more reach, flooding areas once thought safe. Scientists are observing hurricanes that stall in place, dumping record-breaking rainfall over the same region for days, as seen in Hurricane Harvey in 2017. Tornado seasons are shifting, expanding into regions once thought immune. Even thunderstorms are becoming more dangerous, with evidence suggesting that lightning strikes are increasing as temperatures rise. In short, the storms of the future will not just be stronger, they will be stranger, harder to predict, and more destructive than the ones we have known. The human cost of storms is staggering. Beyond the immediate loss of life and destruction of property, storms leave lasting scars on societies. Entire economies can collapse under the weight of rebuilding. In agricultural regions, a single season of failed crops can plunge millions into hunger. For the survivors, trauma lingers long after the skies clear. Children who live through hurricanes or tornadoes often carry psychological scars, haunted by the sound of howling winds or the memory of loved ones lost. Entire communities can be displaced, creating climate refugees who must rebuild their lives elsewhere. And as storms become more frequent and severe, the number of these displaced populations will only grow, straining resources and igniting political tension. But storms are not merely destructive, they are also profoundly symbolic. For centuries, cultures have seen them as signs from the gods, punishments or warnings. Thunder and lightning inspired fear and reverence, shaping myths and religions across the globe. Today, science has replaced superstition, but the awe remains. Watching a hurricane swirl from a satellite's view, or seeing lightning split the sky in a jagged flash, evokes the same primal recognition. We are small, vulnerable, and utterly powerless against the forces that govern our world. Storms humble us, reminding us that our skyscrapers, planes, and cities are fragile constructs in the face of wind and rain. Even with advanced technology, our defenses are limited. Satellites, radar, and warning systems have saved countless lives by predicting storms and allowing evacuations. Building codes can make structures more resilient, and flood barriers can hold back surging water. But these measures are always reactive, never preventive. We cannot stop storms from forming. We cannot silence the thunder or still the wind. At best, we can prepare, endure, and rebuild. At worst, we stand in disbelief as entire regions are wiped off the map. For all our progress, we remain at the mercy of the atmosphere's moods. And perhaps that is the most haunting truth. Storms are not anomalies, not glitches in the system. They are the system. They are Earth's way of balancing energy, redistributing heat and keeping the climate in motion. Without storms, the planet would be unrecognizable. They are as essential as they are deadly. The same forces that destroy also sustain, moving water, refreshing soil, and regulating temperatures. This duality makes them impossible to fully hate. Even as they destroy lives, they are both enemy and necessity, a paradox woven into the fabric of the planet itself. Yet knowing this does not make living through one any less terrifying. Imagine standing on a beach as the horizon darkens, the wind howling, the sea rising into monstrous waves, or hearing the sirens wail in the dead of night, giving you minutes to find shelter before a tornado tears through. Imagine rain hammering so hard it feels like the sky itself is collapsing, while rivers swell into torrents that swallow everything in their path. In those moments, all illusions of control vanish. You are reminded with terrifying clarity that the planet has always been in charge, and storms, as destructive as they are only one part of Earth's arsenal. Because if the skies can bring down cities with wind and rain, the seas hold their own weapons. Tsunamis, monstrous waves born from quakes and collapses, capable of erasing entire coastlines in a single strike. If storms are Earth's wrath from above, tsunamis are its vengeance from below, rising from the depths without warning. And what happens when the ocean itself decides to move is a story even more terrifying than the storm. If storms show us how the skies can rage, tsunamis remind us that the oceans we depend on for life can also rise in sudden, unimaginable fury. Most of the time, the sea feels calm, even eternal. It laps gently against beaches, feeds us with its fish, and carries ships across its surface as if it were a highway of endless possibility. But beneath that surface lies power beyond comprehension, energy that can be unleashed in minutes and transform paradise into chaos. A tsunami is not just a wave, it is a wall of water carrying the weight of the ocean itself, striking with the speed of a jet plane and the force of an invading army. And the most terrifying part? It often begins invisibly, far out at sea, where no one can see it coming until it is too late. Unlike storms that announce their arrival with winds and dark skies, tsunamis are born in silence. An earthquake deep beneath the ocean floor, a landslide tumbling into the sea, or even the collapse of a volcano can displace millions of tons of water. That sudden shift creates ripples that race outward in all directions, but calling them ripples is misleading. In the deep ocean, a tsunami wave might only rise a few feet high, moving unnoticed beneath ships, yet it can travel at speeds over 500 miles per hour, faster than a commercial jet. By the time it reaches shallow coastal waters, that hidden energy compresses, forcing the wave to rise into a towering wall. In moments, it crashes ashore, erasing everything in its path. History's most infamous tsunamis read like horror stories written by the planet itself. On December 26, 2004, a massive undersea earthquake off the coast of Sumatra triggered one of the deadliest disasters in human history. Entire towns in Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, and Thailand were obliterated. Nearly 30,000 people lost their lives in a matter of hours. Videos showed the ocean receding mysteriously before surging back as a deadly wall, catching beachgoers who had no idea that retreating water was not a gift, but a warning. Families on vacation were swept away, villages flattened, and coastlines forever altered. For many, the sea, once a source of life and beauty, became a symbol of grief and terror. Japan, too, has faced the ocean's wrath. In March 2011, a 9.0 magnitude earthquake off its coast unleashed a tsunami that not only killed nearly 20,000 people, but also triggered one of the worst nuclear disasters in history at Fukushima. Waves reaching over 130 feet slammed into the shore, swallowing entire towns, overturning cars and buildings, and carrying ships miles inland. Survivors described it as if the ocean itself had risen up to consume them. Even a nation as prepared as Japan, with its early warning systems and seawalls, was caught off guard by the sheer scale of the disaster. The images of black water churning with debris, dragging everything in its path, remain burned into global memory. That tsunamis are not only a modern horror, ancient legends across cultures describe great floods and waves that consumed lands. Some historians believe these myths may be rooted in real events, tsunamis that struck long before science could explain them. The eruption of Santorini around 1600 BCE created waves that devastated the Minoan civilization, possibly inspiring stories like the sinking of Atlantis. In Alaska, geological evidence shows that massive landslides into fjords triggered waves hundreds of feet high, dwarfing anything seen in modern times. These so-called mega-tsunamis remind us that as destructive as modern disasters are, even greater forces remain possible, lurking in Earth's history, waiting to return. The human vulnerability to tsunamis lies not only in their destructive power but in their unpredictability. While scientists can monitor seismic activity, the exact size and impact of a tsunami are difficult to calculate until it is already underway. Warning systems exist, but they depend on communication, infrastructure, and rapid evacuation, things that are not always possible in poor or remote regions. In many coastal areas, people live just minutes from the sea, with no way to escape in time. The terrifying reality is that once a tsunami begins, the window to act is often measured not in hours but in minutes. What makes tsunamis even more sinister is their ability to strike far from their origin. A quake in one part of the ocean can send waves across entire basins. The 1960 Chile earthquake, the largest ever recorded, generated a tsunami that traveled across the Pacific, killing people as far away as Japan and the Philippines. This interconnectedness means that no coastline is truly safe. If you live near the ocean, no matter how calm it seems, you are connected to distant tectonic battles unfolding far beyond the horizon. And yet, in their destruction, tsunamis also reveal something profound about the planet. They remind us of the raw interconnectedness between Earth's systems, how a quake deep underground can move an entire ocean, how a landslide on a cliff can ripple into waves that cross the world. They reveal the illusion of permanence in human creations. Concrete, steel, skyscrapers, highways, all vanish like toys when the sea decides to reclaim the land. They teach us humility in a way few other disasters can, stripping away the idea that we have mastered nature. The scars left by tsunamis linger for generations. Survivors speak of fear not only of the ocean but of the silence before the wave, the haunting memory of receding waters, the sound of roaring waters swallowing everything familiar. Communities often rebuild, but the trauma runs deep. In some places, entire villages relocate inland, abandoning ancestral homes. For children, the ocean becomes not a place of play but a reminder of loss. The cultural and psychological wounds are as lasting as the physical ones, and as with so many other natural disasters, climate change adds a disturbing layer to the story. Rising sea levels mean that even smaller tsunamis will have a greater impact, reaching further inland, affecting more people. Coastal erosion weakens natural barriers, leaving communities more exposed. Meanwhile, melting glaciers and shifting tectonics could trigger more landslides capable of creating local megatsunamis. The ocean, already vast and unpredictable, is becoming an even greater threat as human activity reshapes the planet. Still, it is not all despair. Knowledge is one of our greatest defenses. In places like Japan, children are taught from a young age to run to higher ground when the ocean recedes. Communities develop evacuation routes, and governments invest in monitoring systems. These measures save lives, though they cannot prevent the disaster itself. The lesson is clear: survival often comes down to respect, respecting the signs, respecting the power of the ocean, and remembering that Earth will always be stronger than us. Imagine standing on a beach, watching the tide suddenly pull away, exposing the seafloor where fish flop helplessly and shells glitter in the sun. For a brief moment it feels like a miracle, a chance to walk where no human usually can. But then the horizon rises, a dark line growing taller, moving faster, and you realize the truth. The ocean is coming back, not gently, but as a wall of fury. In that instant, the illusion of safety shatters, and you understand that the ocean was never yours to control. Tsunamis are terrifying not only because of their destruction, but because of what they represent. The reminder that we live on a planet that can, at any moment, shift, collapse, and send waves that rewrite the map. They are Earth's way of reminding us that survival is fragile, that our coastlines are borrowed land, and that the ocean's calm face hides a violent heart. And as devastating as tsunamis are, they are not the only danger the ocean holds, because beyond the waves, deep beneath the surface, lie mysteries darker and more terrifying. secrets of the abyss that might make even the fury of a tsunami seem small in comparison. For all of humanity's achievements, landing on the moon, building cities that scrape the sky, sending probes to the edge of the solar system, there is still a place on Earth more alien than anywhere we've explored. That place is the deep ocean, covering more than 70% of our planet. The oceans hold most of Earth's life, most of its heat, and most of its mysteries. Yet despite its vastness, more than 80% of the ocean remains completely unmapped and unexplored. It is easier to send a spacecraft to Mars than to plunge into the deepest trenches of our own planet. And in that uncharted darkness lie wonders and horrors that defy imagination, forces that remind us that the sea is not just a backdrop to human history, but a frontier we barely understand. Descending into the deep ocean is like traveling to another world. Sunlight vanishes within a few hundred feet, and beyond that lies eternal night. Pressures build so high they could crush submarines like soda cans. Temperatures plummet near freezing, sucked around volcanic vents where heat gushes into the abyss. In this alien landscape, life exists in forms that seem impossible. Creatures with glowing bodies, transparent skins, jaws lined with needle teeth. Anglerfish dangle lures of living light to draw prey close enough to devour. Giant squid, once thought to be myths, roam the dark with eyes the size of basketballs, perfectly adapted to detect faint glimmers in the void. These creatures are real, yet they feel like nightmares brought to life, proof that evolution thrives even in the most inhospitable corners of the planet. But the deep sea holds more than strange creatures. It hides secrets that could reshape our understanding of Earth. Submarine volcanoes erupt unseen, releasing more lava each year than all land volcanoes combined. Hydrothermal vents spew mineral-rich water into the dark, creating ecosystems independent of sunlight, powered instead by chemical reactions. These vents may even hold clues to the origin of life itself, suggesting that the spark of biology could have ignited not on land, but in the crushing depths of the ocean. The possibility that life's story began in the abyss makes the deep ocean not just a mystery of our planet, but a key to understanding life across the universe. Yet, for all its wonder, the deep ocean also carries dangers that could threaten humanity in ways we are only beginning to grasp. Vast methane hydrates lie frozen beneath the seafloor, stable only in the cold, high-pressure environment of the depth. If disturbed by warming waters or geological shifts, these reserves could release enormous amounts of methane, a greenhouse gas far more potent than carbon dioxide. Scientists warn that such a release could accelerate climate change dramatically, turning the ocean into both a victim and a weapon of planetary transformation. The same depths that cradle strange life may also conceal a ticking time bomb. The ocean floor also bears scars of ancient catastrophes. Evidence shows that massive undersea landslides have triggered tsunamis of unimaginable scale, waves far larger than anything in recorded history. Some of these collapses may have sent walls of water hundreds of feet high racing across oceans, devastating coastlines long before humans had the means to record them. If such an event were to occur today, the result would be global chaos, coastal cities wiped out, economies shattered, millions displaced. And because these landslides happen beneath miles of water, they leave little warning before unleashing destruction. Beyond geological threats, the deep ocean may also hide biological ones. Scientists have discovered viruses and bacteria in the abyss that survive in extreme conditions, heat, pressure, and toxicity that would kill most known organisms. These extremophiles could provide insights into medicine and technology, but they also raise chilling questions. What happens if ancient microbes, long trapped in sediments, are released as we drill, mine, or disturb the ocean floor? Are we awakening forms of life that have been locked away for good reason? The possibility may sound like science fiction, but time and again the ocean has shown us that it is full of surprises, many of them unpleasant. Human exploitation of the deep sea adds another layer of danger. As resources on land become scarcer, attention has turned to mining the ocean floor for precious metals and rare earth elements. But the ecosystems of the deep are fragile, built over thousands of years in delicate balance. Disturbing them could cause collapses we cannot predict. What's worse, we are rushing forward with exploration and exploitation when we still understand so little. It is as if we are tearing pages from a book we've not yet read, risking knowledge and stability in the pursuit of profit. And then there are the sounds. In the 1990s, researchers with hydrophones, underwater microphones, began recording strange noises echoing through the ocean depths. Some, like the bloop, were so loud they could be heard across thousands of miles. At first, theories ranged from giant sea creatures to secret submarines. Later analysis suggested that many were caused by shifting ice or geological events. Yet the mystery remains, because not all sounds have been explained. The idea that something massive, something alive, could lurk in the deep ocean is not easily dismissed. After all, for centuries giant squid were dismissed as sailors' tales until science finally confirmed their existence. If one myth proved true, who's to say others won't? The allure of the deep ocean is its duality. It is both a source of terror and a source of wonder. It reminds us how little we know about the planet we call home. We map other worlds while our own remains largely a mystery, and that ignorance is dangerous, because what we do not know can destroy us. Whether it is methane waiting to be released, landslides waiting to collapse, or creatures we have yet to meet, the ocean is not just water, it is a vast living system with secrets that can shake our world. But perhaps the greatest mystery of the deep ocean is psychological. Why does it frighten us so much? Part of the answer lies in its darkness, its unknowability. We fear what we cannot see, what might be lurking just beyond the edge of light. The thought of sinking into that abyss, pressure crushing, darkness swallowing, surrounded by creatures we do not understand, taps into something primal. It is the same fear that drove myths of sea monsters, the same awe that fuels modern horror films about the deep. The ocean does not just hold physical threats, it holds the power to unsettle the human mind. Imagine standing on a ship at night, staring into the black water. Beneath you lies a world so vast and unexplored that even the boldest scientists admit we know almost nothing about it. Somewhere in that darkness, creatures glow, mountains erupt and secrets sleep. Somewhere, pressures rise to levels that would crush steel, yet life persists. And somewhere, perhaps, dangers we cannot even name are waiting. The deep ocean is a reminder that the Earth still has frontiers, and those frontiers are not safe. And yet, for all its terrors, the deep sea is also a source of hope. Its ecosystems may hold cures for diseases, its processes may teach us about resilience, its mysteries may expand our understanding of life itself. The paradox of the deep ocean is that it can both kill and save, destroy and inspire. It is both threat and treasure, a mirror of Earth's dual nature as both cradle and executioner. But as haunting as the deep ocean is, it is not the final mystery, because while we fear what lies beneath, there is also a danger above us beyond the sky in the cosmic forces that shape not just Earth but the entire solar system. And those forces, when they turn their gaze toward us, can end civilizations with a single strike. For all the dangers Earth creates on its own, volcanoes, earthquakes, storms, tsunamis, there is another category of threats that remind us we are not only at the mercy of this planet, but of the universe itself. Cosmic dangers lurk beyond our atmosphere, silent and merciless, capable of striking without warning and leaving devastation on a planetary scale. We often look up at the night sky and see beauty stars sparkling, planets glowing, the faint arc of the Milky Way. But hidden in that beauty are threats, asteroids, comets, radiation and solar storms that could end civilization as we know it in the blink of an eye. Unlike earthquakes or floods, these dangers come from outside, forces so vast they make us realize how fragile our existence truly is. Asteroids are perhaps the most famous of these threats, and for good reason. 66 million years ago, a rock about 6 miles wide slammed into the Yucatan Peninsula, releasing energy billions of times greater than the Hiroshima bomb. The impact carved out the Chicxulub crater and unleashed a chain reaction of firestorms, tsunamis, and a nuclear winter that blotted out the sun. The age of the dinosaurs ended in days, their 160 million year reign wiped away in one violent strike. That asteroid cleared the stage for mammals and eventually humans, but it also served as a chilling reminder. Space is filled with rocks, still crossing Earth's path. NASA tracks thousands of near-Earth objects, but admits there are countless more too small or faint to detect. Any one of them could, given the right trajectory, repeat history. The terrifying part about asteroid impacts is not just their destructive potential, but their inevitability. Small impacts happen regularly. Meteorites burn up in our atmosphere daily, and occasionally larger ones make it to the ground. In 2013, a meteor exploded over Chelyabinsk, Russia, with the force of 30 Hiroshima bombs, shattering windows and injuring over 1,000 people. That rock was only about 60 feet wide, tiny compared to the one that ended the dinosaurs. If something even a few hundred meters across hit a populated region, it could erase entire cities. And while the odds of such an event in any given year are low, over centuries and millennia, the risk approaches certainty. But space does not only send us rocks, it bombards us constantly with radiation from the sun. Most of the time, Earth's magnetic field shields us from the worst of it. But sometimes the sun erupts in massive storms, releasing bursts of charged particles known as coronal mass ejections. When these hit Earth, they can disrupt satellites, knock out power grids, and disable communications. In 1859, the Carrington event, the largest solar storm on record, set telegraph wires on fire and lit up skies around the world with auroras. If a storm of that magnitude struck today, it could cripple modern civilization. Power grids would fail, satellites would be fried, navigation systems would collapse, and billions of people could be thrown into darkness. The cost would be measured not just in dollars, but in lives, as hospitals, water systems, and food supplies faltered. And unlike hurricanes, solar storms are difficult to predict, giving us only hours of warning. Cosmic radiation poses another insidious threat. Beyond the sun, distant stars and galaxies send streams of high-energy particles across the universe. Normally, Earth's magnetic field and atmosphere protect us, but if our magnetic shield weakens, as it has in the past, these cosmic rays could increase dramatically, raising risks of cancer, genetic mutations, and widespread damage to technology. Our planet's protection is not permanent. Geomagnetic reversals, where the north and south poles flip, have happened many times in Earth's history. During those transitions, the shield weakens, leaving the surface vulnerable. Scientists warn that another reversal is overdue, and when it comes, the consequences could be devastating. And then there are comets, icy wanderers from the outer solar system that swing inward unpredictably. Unlike asteroids, which orbit relatively close, comets come from the distant Oort cloud, billions of miles away. Their orbits are long and their appearances rare, but their speeds are incredible. A comet strike, moving many times faster than most asteroids, could deliver unimaginable energy. Some scientists suggest past mass extinctions may have been caused not only by asteroids but by cometary impacts. While the probability of a comet strike is lower, its consequences could be far greater. Beyond physical impacts and radiation, cosmic dangers extend into the realms of mystery. Gamma-ray bursts, massive explosions from dying stars, release more energy in seconds than our sun will in its entire lifetime. If one were to strike Earth from within a few thousand light years, it could strip away the ozone layer, exposing the surface to deadly ultraviolet radiation. Life would be devastated. Luckily, these bursts are rare and usually occur far away, but the possibility lingers, a reminder that the universe is not a gentle place. Even black holes, those invisible monsters of gravity, pose a distant but real danger. If one were to drift near our solar system, its gravitational pull could disrupt planetary orbits, sending Earth into chaos. While no known black holes are close enough to threaten us, the very thought underscores how vulnerable we are to the cosmos. The universe does not care about our survival. It operates on scales far beyond human comprehension. What makes cosmic dangers so chilling is that they are both unstoppable and unpredictable. We can build stronger buildings to withstand earthquakes. We can prepare for floods, but we cannot prevent an asteroid from falling or a solar storm from erupting. Our best hope lies in detection and preparation. Space agencies are developing systems to track near-Earth objects, even experimenting with deflection technologies, nudging asteroids off course using spacecraft or nuclear explosions. But these technologies are in their infancy. If a large object were discovered on a collision course with Earth tomorrow, we might not have the time or ability to stop it. Yet in this vulnerability lies a strange kind of perspective. Cosmic dangers remind us that humanity is part of a much larger story, one that stretches beyond Earth. They remind us that life here exists because of delicate balances, shields of magnetism, layers of atmosphere, stable orbits that can be disrupted at any time. They remind us that survival is not guaranteed, that our species is a fragile thread in the vast tapestry of the universe, and perhaps most importantly, they remind us of the urgency of exploration. If Earth is threatened from beyond, our best defense may not be to stay, but to expand to the moon, to Mars, to worlds beyond. The cosmos is dangerous, but it is also where our future lies. Imagine looking up at the night sky, seeing the stars twinkle with beauty, and realizing that hidden among them are threats that could erase everything you know. Somewhere out there, a rock may already be on its way, a solar storm may already be brewing, a burst of radiation may already be racing toward us. We do not know when, we do not know where, and that uncertainty is what makes cosmic dangers so haunting. They are not just possibilities, they are inevitabilities. The only question is whether we will be ready when they arrive. And while the universe threatens us from above, Earth itself is not finished revealing its surprises, because even as cosmic forces loom over us, the human story is entangled with mysteries of our own making, choices that could either save us or hasten our downfall. And those choices, as history has shown, may prove to be as dangerous as any asteroid or storm from the stars. For billions of years, Earth has faced disasters from every direction: asteroid impacts, volcanic winters, ice ages, shifting climates, tsunamis, storms, and cosmic threats. Life has adapted, evolved, and sometimes been nearly erased, but the planet has always endured. Humanity, however, is new to this story. We have only been here for a fraction of Earth's history, yet in that short time, we have transformed the world in ways no other species has. We have built cities of glass and steel, split the atom, harnessed fire, and reached into space. But with our power comes a paradox. The greatest threat to human survival may not be volcanoes, asteroids, or cosmic radiation. It may be us. For the first time in history, a species has the ability to decide its own fate, and that decision is far from certain. Our story begins with ambition. From the moment humans began to walk upright, we sought to control our environment. We tamed fire, cultivated crops, and built civilizations. That ambition allowed us to survive challenges that would have destroyed weaker species. Yet ambition without restraint can be dangerous. Today, our pursuit of progress is destabilizing the very systems that sustain us. We burn fossil fuels, pumping carbon into the air at rates the planet has never seen, triggering climate shifts that mirror the chaos of past extinction. We cut down forests that once balanced our atmosphere. We fill rivers and oceans with waste, poison the soil, and drive countless species to extinction. Each act may seem small in isolation, but together they form a pattern. Humanity pushing Earth's balance to its breaking point. The irony is striking. We fear cosmic disasters, yet we are creating our own. Climate change is perhaps the clearest example. Rising seas threaten to swallow coastal cities where billions live. Extreme weather, hurricanes, droughts, wildfires is intensifying, leaving scars on every continent. Crops fail under changing conditions, threatening food supplies. Diseases once confined to warm climates spread into new regions. Refugees flee from uninhabitable lands, sparking political conflicts. Scientists warn of tipping points, moments where the system shifts irreversibly, where feedback loops take over and human control is lost. Permafrost releasing methane, ice sheets collapsing, rainforests turning into savannas. These are not distant possibilities, they are happening now. And yet too often we look away as if ignoring the storm will make it pass. But environmental destruction is only one piece of the puzzle. Humanity has also created weapons powerful enough to end civilization in minutes. Nuclear weapons remain one of the most chilling examples of our self-destructive potential. Since their invention, we have lived under the shadow of their use, whether by war, accident, or miscalculation. A full-scale nuclear exchange would not just destroy cities, it would ignite firestorms, block out the sun, and plunge the world into a nuclear winter. Crops would fail, billions would starve, and society would collapse. For decades, the threat has loomed over humanity, a reminder that we hold our own extinction in our hands. And even though wars may feel far away, the weapons remain, ready at a moment's notice. The doomsday clock ticks not because of asteroids or supervolcanoes, but because of human choices. Technology, too, is a double-edged sword. It has given us incredible power to communicate, cure diseases, and explore, but it also carries risks we barely understand. Artificial intelligence is advancing at a pace that outstrips regulation, raising questions about whether we are creating machines that could one day surpass our control. Biotechnology allows us to edit genes and fight illness, but also creates the potential for engineered diseases that could escape labs and spread uncontrollably. Cyber warfare threatens power grids, water supplies, and financial system. In our pursuit of progress, we often ignore the possibility that our inventions could turn against us, either through malice or accident. The dangers we create with our own hands may rival those from the cosmos. Even our social systems reveal vulnerabilities. History shows that civilizations collapse not just from outside threats, but from within. Inequality grows, resources dwindle, trust erodes, and societies fracture. Rome fell not only to invading armies, but to corruption, division, and overextension. The Maya suffered not only from drought, but from internal strife. Today, humanity faces global challenges: climate, war, pandemics that require cooperation. Yet nations remain divided. Political conflicts, misinformation, and short-term thinking undermine our ability to act collectively. In a world where threats are planetary, we remain trapped in tribal thinking, and that division may be the greatest weakness of all. Yet despite all this, humanity also holds the keys to its survival. We are not powerless. We have the knowledge to shift away from fossil fuels, the technology to build resilient cities, the creativity to design systems that work with nature instead of against it. We have the power to dismantle weapons of mass destruction, to regulate dangerous technologies, to invest in science and exploration that expand our horizons rather than shrink them. What stands in the way is not a lack of ability, but a lack of will. The question is whether we can recognize the danger in time, whether we can rise above greed and fear to choose survival over destruction. Hope lies in the same traits that make us dangerous: our intelligence, our adaptability, our imagination. The same species that split the atom can learn to harness fusion for clean energy. The same species that built weapons of annihilation can build systems of cooperation. The same species that burns forests can replant them, that pollutes oceans can restore them. History shows that humans can act when faced with crisis. The challenge is to act before the point of no return. Perhaps the greatest truth is this: Earth will endure, with or without us. The planet has survived asteroid strikes, supervolcanoes, ice ages, and mass extinctions. If humanity disappears, Earth will recover in time. Life will continue, evolving into new forms, filling the gaps we leave behind. The real question is not whether Earth will survive, but whether we will. Our survival depends not on escaping the planet's dangers, but on recognizing our role in creating and amplifying them. We are not just victims of Earth's fury. We are participants, shaping the conditions of our own future. Imagine standing in a city at night, surrounded by lights, cars, and skyscrapers, marveling at how far we've come. Now imagine all of it gone: streets empty, buildings crumbling, silence replacing the hum of human activity. This is not just the vision of a cosmic strike or a volcanic eruption. It is the vision of a species that failed to act, undone not by nature, but by its own hand. The choices we make today echo across centuries. They will determine whether humanity thrives, stumbles, or vanishes into the pages of history like so many civilizations before. And this is the paradox of humanity's role. We are both the problem and the solution. We stand on a knife's edge, with destruction on one side and survival on the other. The dangers of Earth and the cosmos are real, but it is our choices that will decide whether they become our undoing or our challenge to overcome. The universe will not save us. The planet will not save us. Only we can. And as daunting as that responsibility is, it may also be the one thing that gives us a chance. Because if we can recognize our role, if we can rise to the challenge, we may yet prove that the story of humanity is not one of self-destruction, but one of resilience, growth, and survival against all odds. But if we fail, Earth will continue without us, and the silence of our absence will be the loudest warning of all to whatever species comes next. The story of humanity has always been one of survival, adaptation, and ambition. We climbed out of caves, crossed oceans, built cities, and reached for the stars. Yet, as we stand at the crossroads of history, the final reckoning is no longer about how far we have come, but about whether we can endure what lies ahead. The future holds extraordinary promise, but also unprecedented peril, and the choices we make in the coming decades will echo through the millennia. Will humanity rise to its potential, or will we become just another forgotten species, erased by forces too great to overcome or mistakes too grave to repair? That is the question of our age, and perhaps the most important question ever asked. One vision of the future is grim. In this path, humanity fails to learn from the lessons of the past. We continue burning through resources as though the Earth were infinite, polluting air, oceans, and soil until the natural systems collapse. Rising seas swallow coastal cities, displacing hundreds of millions of people. Crops fail in regions once fertile, sparking mass famines. Wars erupt over dwindling water and land, fueled by desperation and greed. Pandemics spread faster in a fractured, overcrowded world, made worse by resistance to medicine and breakdowns in infrastructure. Technology, unchecked and unregulated, turns against us, either through malicious design or accidental disaster. Nuclear weapons remain in silos until one miscalculation unleashes global firestorms, darkening the skies with soot and plunging the world into famine. This is a future where human arrogance and short-sightedness lead not to survival, but to collapse. It is a story civilizations before us have lived, though never on this scale. Rome fell, the Maya fell, and countless others fell. But unlike them, our fall would be global, a collapse not of one empire but of an entire species. Yet another vision is brighter. In this future, humanity chooses survival over destruction. We recognize the dangers we face: climate change, weapons, disease, inequality, not as insurmountable, but as challenges to overcome. We invest in renewable energy, restoring balance to the atmosphere. Cities become green, resilient, and sustainable. Forests are replanted, oceans cleaned, species protected. Instead of clinging to fossil fuels and outdated systems, we embrace innovation. Fusion power lights our homes. Artificial intelligence helps solve problems instead of creating them. Global cooperation replaces division, not because nations suddenly abandon self-interest, but because survival forces unity. Humanity begins to spread beyond Earth, establishing footholds on the Moon, Mars, and perhaps even further. We become a multi-planetary species, not to escape Earth's problems, but to safeguard against the inevitabilities of cosmic dangers. This is the vision of hope, humanity not just enduring but thriving, becoming a civilization that outlives its planet, its star, and perhaps even its galaxy. The truth of the future, however, likely lies between these extremes. It will not be purely apocalyptic, nor purely utopian. Instead, it will be a series of struggles, victories, setbacks, and transformation. The reckoning is not a single moment, but a constant test, one where humanity's fate is decided again and again by the choices of each generation. The greatest danger we face may not be asteroids, pandemics, or wars, but apathy. The belief that the future is fixed, that we cannot change it, is the most dangerous illusion of all, because the reality is that the future is not written. It is shaped by the actions of billions of people, each decision adding to the scale, tipping it one way or the other. Still, no reckoning would be complete without acknowledging the unpredictable. The universe is vast, chaotic, and filled with mysteries we do not yet understand. At any moment, a solar storm could fry satellites, a virus could mutate beyond control, or an asteroid could cross our path unseen until it is too late. But unpredictability does not mean helplessness. It means preparation. The civilizations that survived history's storms were not those who ignored warnings, but those who planned, adapted, and endured. Our reckoning is not about whether disasters will come, they will. It is about whether we are ready when they arrive. The final reckoning is also deeply personal. It is easy to think of humanity as a faceless whole, but the truth is that survival comes down to individual choices. What we consume, how we vote, what we support, and what we ignore all shape the larger outcome. We may not control asteroids or volcanic eruptions, but we do control whether our cities can withstand them. We may not stop solar storms, but we can decide whether our power grids are fragile or resilient. We may not prevent the tides from rising, but we can choose whether to adapt or to deny. The reckoning is not some distant apocalypse. It is now in every decision made by every person. Perhaps what makes this reckoning so profound is that humanity is no longer a passive passenger on Earth's journey. For most of history, survival meant enduring what the planet or the cosmos threw at us. Today, survival means choosing how to respond, how to prepare, and how to live. We have become both the danger and the solution, both the threat and the hope. We stand at a moment where the next chapter of our story could be one of extinction or one of transcendence. The dinosaurs never had this choice. Civilizations before us never had this choice. we do. And that is both terrifying and empowering. Imagine, centuries from now, historians or perhaps beings not human at all, looking back at this moment in time, they will see a species standing on the edge of possibility. They will see the warnings of climate change, the shadow of weapons, the rise of technology, the cosmic dangers waiting in silence. They will ask, did humanity rise or did it fall? Did we learn or did we ignore the lessons carved into Earth's history? Did we build a future or did we squander it? That judgment will not come from fate, but from us. The final reckoning is not the end. It is the beginning of something new. A beginning that depends entirely on whether humanity can confront its fears, embrace its responsibilities, and act with courage. If we fail, Earth will continue, as it always has. The oceans will heal, the skies will clear, new species will rise to fill the void we leave behind. But if we succeed, we may achieve something no species before us has ever done, to not only survive the planet we were born on, but to carry life itself into the stars. That is the true reckoning, not of destruction, but of destiny. And so, as we look forward, we must ask ourselves not what will happen, but what will we choose. The final reckoning is not a date circled on a calendar or an event written in the stars. It is the sum of our choices, the weight of our actions, the measure of our humanity. The future holds both doom and salvation, and the deciding force is not nature, not fate, not the cosmos. It is us. The only question left is whether we will rise to meet it. In the end, the story of Earth is not just the story of a planet, but of life struggling against impossible odds. From the moment molten rock cooled into solid ground, from the instant oceans formed and the first spark of life took hold, the Earth has been a place of both wonder and danger. Every mountain, every storm, every species tells a tale of survival, of endurance through catastrophe after catastrophe. Extinctions have come and gone, ice has smothered continents, fire has scorched skies, and oceans have swallowed empire. Yet somehow, life has always returned, transformed, evolved, and risen again. Humanity is simply the latest chapter in this epic, and perhaps the most precarious one. For the first time, the fate of a species rests not solely on the shifting moods of nature or the violence of the cosmos, but on the decisions of that species itself. We are both the architects of our survival and the engineers of our destruction. The dangers we face are real and overwhelming. Asteroids capable of ending civilizations, volcanoes that could plunge the world into darkness, solar storms that could cripple the grid, climate change spiraling out of control, and weapons powerful enough to erase entire nations. These threats are not distant possibilities, but active forces pressing against the edges of our existence. And yet within this darkness lies a truth that is both humbling and inspiring. The future is not written. Unlike the dinosaurs, unlike the countless species erased by fate, humanity holds the ability to see the dangers ahead, to predict, to plan, and to adapt. That foresight is our greatest strength, and perhaps our only hope. But survival is not just about preparation, it is about perspective. We must recognize that we are not separate from Earth, not rulers standing above it, but participants entangled in its fragile balance. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the soil that feeds us, these are not resources to exhaust, but lifelines to protect. Our arrogance tells us the planet belongs to us, yet the truth is the opposite. We belong to the planet, and only by respecting that relationship can we endure. If we destroy the systems that sustain us, the Earth will continue without us, just as it continued after the dinosaurs, after the trilobites, after every vanished empire. The silence of our absence would not trouble the planet. The question is not whether Earth will survive, it is whether we will. And so the final reckoning of humanity is not a cosmic impact or a volcanic eruption, but a test of our wisdom, unity, and courage. Will we choose greed, division, and denial, or will we rise to face the truth of our time? History is filled with civilizations that failed this test, undone not by natural disasters alone, but by their inability to adapt, to change, to work together. We stand at a threshold where the scale of danger is global, and the stakes are the survival of the species itself. The decisions we make in this century will echo across thousands of years. The conclusion is not a message of despair, but of urgency. We are fragile, yes, but we are also extraordinary. We are the first species to look up at the stars and ask where we came from. The first to split atoms, to decode DNA, to send machines beyond the solar system. The first with the power to shape not just the present, but the far future. That power is a gift and a burden. If we use it wisely, humanity may not just endure the dangers of Earth and the cosmos, but thrive, carrying life itself beyond this world, ensuring it endures long after the Earth's final breath. But if we squander it, we will join the endless graveyard of species that once believed they would last forever. The story of Earth is still being written, and humanity is holding the pen. Whether we write it as a tragedy of arrogance or as a triumph of resilience, there's a choice we make together, now, in this moment. The dangers will not wait, the cosmos will not pause, and the planet will not forgive. The only question that remains is whether we will rise to meet the challenge or vanish into silence. The ending is not fixed, it is ours to decide.